side. And that then told me that whatever privilege I have had, right, whatever opportunities I've had, I should be able to pass that on and share it with others and work towards creating a more equal world for all beings, right? While it sounds very lofty, but I think each of us has to do our part. And I think that got instilled in me, and I was very firm always. I think maybe being the youngest, it makes you like that, I don't know, but I was very, obdurate, stubborn, and using that stubbornness the right way to stand for. And I would say, I think my travels made it much easy. So whatever people might say, despite the initial hiccups, I've had a very fairly smooth transition into Indonesia. Language isn't as tough. In fact, Vietnam, the language is quite tough, and I tried to learn and I gave up. Yes.
Bahasa is better than.
Yeah, Bahasa is, Indonesia is much better, and I'd like to improve, right? I'm still not there, but I'd like to. But I would honestly say, I think Indonesia is quite accepting, right? People are nice.
Hi, welcome to Faith Over Fear podcast with Rachel Octavia. And hari ini saya kedatangan tamu yang istimewa, tentunya selalu istimewa tamu-tamunya. Tapi kali ini istimewa karena memang perempuan ini super tangguh dan sangat peduli sama perempuan lain, dan nggak cuman ngomong tapi juga actions ya. Kayaknya saya nggak bisa berlama-lama lagi untuk opening. Mari kita mengenal beliau lebih dekat lagi. So I'm here with Aparna. Welcome to FOFcast, Faith Over Fear podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk with you, Rachel.
Yes. Okay. So now, I always admire people who support other people, because nowadays, like, there's a lot. Since social media era, I think,
yes.
A lot of stage, and a lot of people want to be seen.
Yes,
right.
True,
but then
true.
Sometimes it's really sincere. Sometimes like they just riding the wave.
True.
Right. Yeah. And then so we get to know each other a couple months ago, right?
Indeed.
During coffee sessions in Sarina,
Yeah.
right? And then that day, like, actually Aparna introduced me to this wonderful place that we are in right now. We are in TORAJAMELO. Can you share to us what is TORAJAMELO?
Thank you. First of all, Rachel, I do agree with what you've said, and I think we need more people helping each other, working with each other, collaborating with each other, rather than just individual voices. There's just more strength in collective. And yes, I look back to the time we met, and thank you for this opportunity and working with us. TORAJAMELO is impact business, or as it's usually known, social enterprise that works with indigenous backstrap loom weavers. Some of the weaving that you see and that I have on, and you have that beautiful scarf. And backstrap loom weaving is only done by women in Indonesia. So we specially work with these backstrap loom weavers across Indonesia. Most of them, in fact, almost all of them are outside of Java, so outlying areas. And we train them, we share with them about market access, about marketing, and then based on our requirements, we buy the weaving to convert it into products. So we are a lifestyle brand, and we have apparel, we have home and living accessories. So we take this weaving to the market through our products.
So as the aggregator for the product, but also empowering all the weavers.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And in fact, one thing that we always believe is that these women don't need empowerment, they need enabling. We believe these women already have the power within themselves. It's about us helping them unravel the power and give them that necessary, market access and knowledge. And that's been our mission. We've been around for quite a while, and we have a foundation, and we also have a private limited. So the role of the foundation, Yayasan, is to just do training and development, capacity building, while the role of the private limited is to essentially run a business with a purpose, where we treat them as our collaborators, partners, and not as people who need our help and cannot survive without our help. You get it? So I think that demarcation is very important. And that's been our mission, and we've stayed true to that. So that is what is TORAJAMELO. The meaning of TORAJAMELO is beautiful Toraja, because mellow means beautiful in Bahasa Toraja.
Okay, so you are very mellow.
Yeah. Thank you. So are you?
Aparna, you are obviously not from Indonesia. What brings you to Indonesia, and what brings you to TORAJAMELO?
Very interesting question, and a very valid one. I believe that there are no coincidences. So I would say it was serendipity that has brought me here. Rachel, I met the founder when I was in Singapore in 2016, end of 2016, when I was supporting a similar business that was helping businesses like TORAJAMELO with market access and finance. And that's where she and I met, and as fate would have it, I ended up moving here to run the logistics for Lazada. And when I reached here, I said I'd like to help, because my focus for a long time, Rachel, has been around women, environment and education, and I tried to do projects around that. So when I moved here in 2017, even though I was doing something else, I reached out to her and said that I'd like to help out, and I became eventually the advisor. So that was 2017 to 2019. I went away to Vietnam and actually came back. I was doing an EdTech there. And then early 2020, we all know what started happening. And I had actually moved back here to launch that EdTech, but actually Budini reached out, the founder, and she literally told me to take over. And she said that it needs someone younger, it needs someone who's more future looking, and she'd like to give the almost teenage child to someone who can take it further. And I was actually quite hesitant, because the same things that come to your mind came to my mind, that hey, I'm not a local. And that's when she told me, it doesn't matter, I know you for 3 years, and I see that you share that same belief and value, and that's what this needs. And it also tied to my vision that if not now, then when, and if not me, then who? Okay. But it took a lot of persuasion, as she was very relentless, and then I finally said yes, April end, and took over to run TORAJAMELO in June 2020 in the middle of the pandemic.
Wow, that's very brave.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think as a founder, you're always a bit crazy.
I think that's one of the characteristics that
indeed.
Only founders has.
Yeah, we can't always just think the normal path.
Yeah. I mean, like it's very. That's why, like, I find it very unique, because like I got introduced to TORAJAMELO by someone who's not local, and it's a different story, right? And then it must be really, really good, or you must be fall in love with the brand, and then the ecosystem that brought you here, and then finally you are committed to this organizations. And I would say looking from the journey, and then reading from the history, and then you bring this company like upscale. You are very focused to get like a new certifications, international one. You've always been in that area, or what is your vision for this?
Thank you. So I think when I took on this challenge of leading this organization, the whole idea is that I should be able to make a difference to make it better, right?
Correct.
I mean, what's the point otherwise? And also I'm a firm believer of we've got to walk the talk and look at what we can do better in order to, maximize our impact, maximize the business potential. And I knew of some of these certifications, and I understood they are critical for us to look internally, because when we are sorted internally, then we gain that confidence and credibility to even engage externally, right? And we also actually pivoted our customer focus. So from earlier, TORAJAMELO's customer focus was a slightly older audience, right? Because weaving, etc. But when when I took over, we discussed and we realized we had to pivot to focus on millennials like ourselves and Gen Z, because it's the future. It's the people who are going to have the purchasing power, and it's the people who need to understand their rich heritage and culture. So we pivoted during that pandemic. So right from changing the audience focus to changing what should be our design sentiment to then getting the valid, certifications. So yeah, and I was nowhere connected. Of course, like I said, I am an environmentalist. So of course I knew of these certifications, but in terms of, figuring everything else, it came along, and I think it comes from a constant drive to try and keep learning and improving. We never stop doing that, because that's the only way we can help the organization we are involved in to be evolved, right, and to keep on growing.
Wow, so you're very like purpose-driven people.
Yes, I'm trying to be, right? If you don't have a purpose, then what's the point, right? So I try.
I'm curious of how is your childhood moment? I mean, like where were you, and then how's your family? And all of that. Will you share with us?
Yes, actually, my childhood has been pivotal to what I'm now, and I really owe it to that upbringing I had. So I had a very feminist upbringing, very equal. I'm youngest of 3, only daughter. And both my parents, especially my father, he's not around anymore, but he's been the first feminist I knew, and always had equal opportunity, never had discrimination against my gender, right? Did whatever. The same rules applied to all 3 of us. Mom was always more busy, a banker, and father was around more. So I think I saw these things right from a very young age. So I didn't see discrimination at home per se, and I saw what each of us stood for, and that instilled in me the value of justice and fairness, right? Because we all stood for who we are, and also doing things and being yourself and standing for your values. I think these are the things I learned from my father. Also, environmentalism got embedded very early, because I grew up in a very green township, and I saw nature, and I used to go for hikes and visits to nature reserves, etc. And I got the love for animals from my mother. So I guess this whole concept of social justice also got instilled. And then as I grew up, I saw how unfair and unjust the world was when you look outside. And that then told me that whatever privilege I have had, right, whatever opportunities I've had, I should be able to pass that on and share it with others and work towards creating a more equal world for all beings, right? While it sounds very lofty, but I think each of us has to do our part. And I think that got instilled in me, and I was very firm always. I think maybe being the youngest, it makes you like that, I don't know, but I was very obdurate, stubborn, and using that stubbornness the right way to stand for your values, I think got really instilled in me. Of course, I haven't lost the stubbornness, but then how you use it, right, in a more softer way, it comes with age and experience, right? But yes, I've had a very happy and very interesting hands-on childhood, and I'm very grateful to my parents for that, and very, I would say, not very common during those times.
And you've been traveling around the world since you were how old?
Okay, so very interesting. I think when we were young, India is a big country, so we did a lot of holidays within India, and I think again I owe it to my parents that they would, whenever possible, choose beautiful destinations. And then my first international trip was very late, and I mean, no regrets. It was after I had finished my college to Singapore, and then I think there were a few other trips. But I really started traveling is when I moved to Singapore, and then with my own money. And since then, yes, I like traveling, as in I would say internationally, because in Singapore there's no domestic travel. So I think that's when I essentially sort of was able to put into practice the travel in me. So I really love traveling, and then And so yeah, since then I've traveled quite a bit, yes, and I love going to different destinations, and I love traveling during off season. So I like to see something different rather than just following the herd. Actually, I think something I've understood about myself is I'm not a big fan of everything mainstream, including travel.
Yeah, you want to be local, not a tourist.
Indeed, yes, indeed.
Yeah. I mean, to move to other countries, it's needed some of the braveness, and to adapt and then to live in it is like a different, right?
Yeah.
How do you find it? Like, is it difficult to adapt to Indonesian culture of the people and the food, maybe the way we interact, the way we work? How do you find it? Is it a culture shock for you?
So I have always been very adventurous, right? And Indonesia is the fourth country that I have now lived and worked in, outside of my own country, right, India. And I'll be very honest, no, actually India, Indonesia are very similar in many ways, which we don't realize. So Indonesia wasn't tough. I mean, it was different, yes, because I moved from Singapore, but I mean, people are nice, right? And it's actually quite, I would say, it's alive, right? It's a country that has its quirkiness, craziness and everything, and which is the way it should be, right? And I would say, I think my travels made it much easy. So whatever people might say, despite the initial hiccups, I've had a very fairly smooth transition into Indonesia. Language isn't as tough. In fact, Vietnam, the language is quite tough, and I tried to learn and I gave up. Yes.
Bahasa is better then.
Yeah, Bahasa is, Indonesia is much better, and I'd like to improve, right? I'm still not there, but I'd like to. But I would honestly say, I think Indonesia is quite accepting, right? People are nice. The diversity matches with what I have seen in India. And I have been a vegan for over 10 years. And I turned vegan in Singapore, where it was tough. Yeah, but when I moved, by the time I had moved here, things had become easier. But the thing is, what people don't realize is Indonesian food is either vegan or meat based, right? I mean, you don't use so much dairy.
Yeah, correct.
So as long as I was able to explain, and that way I'm flexible, it wasn't as tough. And I love tofu and tempeh. I love tahu tempeh. So
you're known as what?
Tahu monster.
Tahu monster.
Because if I see tofu, it's gonna go, right? And I actually found Indonesian food has so many vegan options, and it's good, and it's a lot of vegetables. So honestly, I've had a good time. And of the countries in Southeast Asia, I would say Indonesia has pretty good food for all types of people. So I would say, and combined with the easiness of the language, I would say in ASEAN countries, this is a very interesting country to be in. Yeah? And thankfully cheaper than Singapore.
Yeah, here. Yeah, this is a very good country.
Yes,
yeah?
And this is me, a foreigner, saying, and I vouch for it. Yeah, I guess just the pollution part, but then I think that's something we have to deal with. But otherwise, I think very livable, very.
It's kind of love and hate relationship with the city, especially, right? With the traffic and the pollutions, but then the people, the business, and how accessible maybe, right? I think
Yeah, people find Jakarta very fast, to be very honest. For me, it's okay. I come from Mumbai.
It's more, it's faster there.
Yeah, much. Yeah. So I don't mind the pace. I am fine. Like I said, barring those hiccups, I think the fact that you're able to do things here, make a difference in the diversity and everything, I like it.
Yeah.
It's a very livable place. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, I found you very inspiration, like you are very bold, like you know what you want, and you adapt to the situation, you adjust to the new culture as well, but you deliver what you want in a very nice way. I wonder, have you ever feel fear in your life?
Of course. And I mean, honestly, if you think I know all I want, no, that is also a lie. I think it's just that over experiences, and as you build the confidence, I know that if I don't know, I will figure. I think what has been instilled in me and I developed is that I will find a way. I will figure. I might not know. I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers, but we can figure our way. And I think that keeps me going. Of course, I feel fear. There is a very strong imposter syndrome, as a foreign brown woman, right? I come from an industry where very few women are there, logistics. So I've faced a lot of discrimination. So I wouldn't say that I haven't had fears. I haven't had low self-esteem. Those moments are there, always there, and they're a part or parcel of life. I think what we need to figure out and embrace is that you feel it. There'll be moments of low and there'll be moments of high, but you don't linger on either. Right? The important part is, yes, there will be times when you will not know what to do, right? Those frustrating moments. And I actually question myself often, like, what am I doing here? Because my family is also like, what are you doing there? Just
I believe you receive like that so many questions from friends
and family. But I think you take it, and then what happens is eventually you realize you came here to do something, right? So your purpose then brings you back. But I also want to really be honest and say, nobody's ever fully confident. If anyone says that they've figured it all out, they've never had fear, no. I fear many things. It's just that I acknowledge them, and I know that I will harness in me the courage to address them, or I will work with the people who are my supporters, champions, family, friends, to figure my way around it. But having fear also keeps you humble, right? It's just that fear should not derail you from where you want to go, right? One should have acknowledgement of fear and failure, but not the fear. You get it? Because we will fail and we will fear things. We just need to acknowledge it's a part and parcel of life, and we find a way to navigate it. Because I think if we always put ourselves on a high, then when things happen, which is most of the time beyond our control, we don't know how to address. So I do feel fear, let me acknowledge, even though it doesn't show, right? It's just that, I will not let that fear decide everything that I want to do in life.
And then you mentioned about failure, right? How do you deal with failure? Because like most people, like very much adaptive with the success, but with failure it's like something that we don't admit a lot, right? How do you deal with failure?
I know. Again, you're asking great questions, and I think these are the ones, because I've been on a few podcasts before, and there'll be questions on what is the secret to your success, right? But do we really look at failure? Because I think failure defines success, and to be very honest, again, I'll say, if anyone ever says that, oh, I've never failed, I've always had a good run, they're lying. So again, just the way fear is to courage, failure is to success. Failure and mistakes are integral to our growth. We need that to learn to do better, right? To get to know the alternatives. And it is very important for building your own self, even business. Any business that has not had challenges and mistakes and failures is really not growing, because then they are operating in a space which is the comfort space, right? I think if you've never had failure, means you've not challenged yourself and pushed yourself, be it as an individual or a business. So it is tough, but of course when failure happens, it lets you down, it gets to you. And I think as a leader, I'll also be very honest, what people don't realize is I'm my best friend, but I'm also my worst enemy. I'm the most critical to myself, so it does hit you. But what you have to realize is, if you've given all, right, and you've gotten a lesson, right? So don't take failure as a failure. Every failure is a lesson of what happened and what you learned from that. Take those lessons and don't repeat the same. So my whole focus would be to not repeat the same mistake, because then there's something wrong. You've not reflected. So try not to repeat the mistakes that lead to that failure. go do new ones, because every new mistake and a new failure is a new learning. So that's how I sort of, keep myself going. And we live in such an evolving world that there will be things we will not get right in the first go. But let's try minimizing.
I like that. Do not repeat the
same mistakes. Yes.
Because for me, maybe by age, by mature, we come to the different understanding. For me, if it's not happening, it is fail, so it's got protections. But if it's happening, it's got directions. I keep it that way.
Okay.
So it's good to be ambitious, right? Because people always say, oh, you're very ambitious, but hey, we live with the ambition in life, right?
Yeah.
But I like that. Don't repeat the same mistake, right?
Indeed. Yeah.
You can have other different
make new mistakes. And I also say learn from others' mistakes, right? I believe life is too short to repeat the same mistakes. There is often so much we can learn from the other mistakes, right? What other businesses have learned, or individuals, and incorporate it. It just makes for a more fulfilling life.
Correct. So I'm curious, what is the difference between you 10 years ago and you are now?
Very good question. Very good question, because people usually ask 10 years from now in future. I'm glad you're asking that. I would say I'm much more self-assured, much more confident. 10 years ago, still in my very early 30s, there was this need to figure out what you want and to prove yourself more. While the values were always there, right? Now, I think as you age, you realize that you have nothing to prove to anyone but to yourself, as long as you are true to your values. I also don't care too much about people's opinions and gossips, right? Because that will always happen. Everyone will have opinions. So you become much more confident that as long as what you're doing is leading towards what you have set out to for your business, for yourself, and not doing willful harm, the rest doesn't matter. So I think I'm much more confident, self-assured, and I would say more wiser than I was 10 years ago. Yes, of course, the downside is I do realize now that I don't have that much energy at times, or not just energy, if I may say so, right? I have very low tolerance to bullshit. So while I've become mature and wiser, but honestly, the bullshit radar, if I use that word, has really become high, because now you're like, I understand these kind of people, I get along with these kind of people, I think I can work with these kind of people, but the rest, I've really started consolidating, my life in terms of who I will engage with, who I will not, because there's so much going around, and I really don't have time, and that includes then who you give your time and attention to. And I really, I have very low tolerance now, because for me, I've just realized that this is just one life, and I think COVID pandemic also played a role in that. We started valuing what we have more strongly, and I did too. So yes, I mean, one big change is patience increased in many ways, wiseness, but impatience increased in terms of bullshit.
Obviously,
I will walk away. I will say no, because I'd really like to use my time on things and people that matter to me and I care about.
What else in life that you've still wanted? I mean, cita-cita in Indonesia, we call it the one that you haven't reached in life that you really wanted. And will you be here? Will you fighting for this in Indonesia in the long run, you think?
So I think for me is, as I told you, right, if I've come here to make a difference, and one another belief I have in life is that if you can't leave a place better than what it was, then what's the point, right? And in all my life and even work roles, I've tried to do that, right? Others might have a different opinion, but I think on a personal reflection, I've never left a mess behind. So I will like to do that for Indonesia too. And Indonesia now. I'm entering almost my 8th year, January, right? Will be in start of my 8th year. My work is still not done, and it might be something that is never done. So the connection with Indonesia will stay. I see that strong bond because I've set out to do something. Whether I will live here forever, I don't know, because India is still home. But I think my work in Indonesia, my partnerships, my collaborations, my friendships, and my deep love for making a difference here will be there and forever. I don't see that ever ending till I end my life. Yeah. So that is for sure. So there is no cut-off end date to this. And that is my dream that... I'm remembering the Robert Frost poem that I have miles to go before I sleep, and I do need a lot more to be done. I want to take this business. I want to we have to definitely become $1 million business very soon, and then also go beyond. And keep making impact collaboratively across. So a lot of work to be done, and I need all the support, possible.
Yeah.
So that's my vision to make this business. And I think foster, another dream I have really not done, and I need that support is, I come from India, you see this India corner. India and Indonesia have so much to do together, right? Both in trade, but in culture similarities and this. And I'm hoping we foster that more. We work collaboratively much more for, a better future for both countries. I think I would say these two are my key, dreams still, Ada. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, because it's so easy to start something, but then to finish it, it's a different story, right?
Indeed.
And then there's a lot of responsibility that some people might give up in the middle, unfinished business, right?
Yeah.
So what is your advice for those people? I mean, who's struggling, maybe to continue doing what they're doing until it's finished, until it's done, because our generation from millennial and then Gen Z is also different, but then in reality sometimes it's just mixed up. We see Gen Z easily give up, but there's millennial also give up in between, right?
Yeah.
What is your advice for people, especially after the pandemic, right?
Yes. So I think one is, I think it's a very individual decision, but you're right, and I'll also be very honest. As I told you, I get this question almost every day, what are you doing? When are you wrapping up, right? Is this your side hobby? You must be having something else going on. So it's not so much internal, it's also external, what are you doing? Where is this? And it's been, it has been a big investment of my whole life, right? I've literally given sweat, blood, tears, everything to this organization and this work that I'm trying to do. So there are these moments that will happen, right? For me, as what I have done is, I have my internal reflection, right? Every few months I will sort of ask myself that, is it really done? Are you satisfied? And I know I'm not. I still have a lot more to do. My advice to those people is that you have to learn to cut out the noise, right? Because as I told you, almost every day I get asked, but you have to ask yourself, right? You have to ask yourself. And if you feel you still have things you haven't done and need to explore, then you must, right? Because again, there is one life. But also in parallel, I will say is, if you feel you've done it all and now it's getting to you, then do it. But just you have to remember what people don't realize is, and this is that quit culture, right? Quit culture, or I don't want it. Let's not talk about any gender group, any generation groups, but I'll say is, the consequence of quit culture is, what people don't realize is, whether you do or don't do, both have consequences. Don't think not doing doesn't have, it does have. Everything has its consequences. Are you willing to own the consequences? Because every time you give up is a missed opportunity.
Yes.
And it will go to someone else. If you don't do, someone else will. Nobody is waiting. Right? So while it is super important to take care of yourself, so please, yes, take care of your own well-being, extremely important. But you have to learn to cut out the noise. Ask yourself whether you've had it in you, and remember to own the consequences, whether good or bad. I think this is my approach, I would say. And then afterwards, yes, please, I mean, it's up to you. And finally, I'll also tell you, Rachel, it takes, I'm not saying I'm special, but it does take people who are a bit different to do different things.
I agree.
And the ones who are like that should also acknowledge and should not force themselves to fit into a particular norm, because that's where they will also feel the what is called as the cognitive dissonance, right? Because you will not see that you fit in with the usual.
Yes.
And that can also lead you to question yourself and want to quit. So I think it's acknowledging that, okay, I'm different and what I'm trying to do is different, and I'll have to have a different approach to it.
Oh, I like that. Thank you, Aparna. Thank you so much. It's like a very deep conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
I hope you guys get what I get. Like, there's a lot of value, lots of like life advice for us, like that keep the faith, because faith we should control. We should have faith over the fear, right? Like people like Aparna, who I thought very brave, so she has her own battle.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and me too. But then I hope this program is inspiring you, and thank you, Aparna. And if you want to say the last word for people to support the movement of TORAJAMELO, what will you say?
So yeah, hi everyone. I mean, let me say in bahasa, tidak bisa jalan sendiri, right? Kita lanjut bersama. So I need all the support possible. This can only be done when people come together and support each other, right? Like collective action. So please go to our website ahana.co, ahana.co, or come to our this beautiful office, Rumah Kita in Mampang, and meet with us, engage with us, buy from us. Because whenever you do that, you're not just helping us, but you're helping the communities and the brands we represent. And I think together we can. We've got to stand for ourselves. Yeah. Thank you so much. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Aparna. Thank you. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Bye.